Right, so earlier this month, Canada delivered a rare moment of anti-Israel action as the Canada Revenue Agency, the CRA, revoked the charitable status of the Jewish National Fund of Canada, the JNF, those notorious Zionist funders, after finding that it had, amongst other things, funded infrastructure in illegal Israeli settlements, including projects directly linked to the expansion of occupation in the West Bank. This was a direct application of international law to domestic charity regulation. Citing the Fourth Geneva Convention and UN Security Council Resolution 2334, Canada confirmed that its charities could not continue to subsidise war crimes under the guise of education or environmental projects. Britain under Keir Starmer, by contrast, though, has chosen to turn a blind eye. You see, it's been revealed that two UK-registered charities, the Kasner Charitable Trust, the KCT, and UK Tormet, had funnelled £5.7 million to the B'nai Akiva Yeshiva, an educational institution in the illegal settlement of Susia in the occupied West Bank. That's a lot of money for a school, isn't it? It'd be nice if British schools were so well funded. But this was not just an educational donation. It's a structural investment in the economic engine of a settlement whose very existence violates international law, and this cash injection allows it to expand, therefore promotes the growth of this illegal settlement. Worse still, the money was sent with the blessing of the UK Charity Commission, meaning it was eligible for gift aid, effectively making British taxpayers unwilling financial partners in Israel's occupation and expansionism. Right, so news has just dropped that the Kasner Charitable Trust and UK Torment, these two UK charities, have between them sent at least £5.7 million to the B'nai Akiva Yeshiva, the high school in Susia, one of the most controversial settlements in the West Bank. Drorek, he's a leading Israeli settlement monitoring expert, described the school as the largest employer in the settlement and a central economic pillar. Its expansion directly correlates with population growth, infrastructure development, and the permanence of Israel's hold over that area. We're here in the UK, new schools get built as populations grow, housing developments get built. In these settlements, the infrastructure gets a boost first, encouraging settlement, encouraging growth. So the charities at the centre of this controversy are hardly neutral at all, and therefore how they still have charitable status is something that we need to talk about. The Kasner Charitable Trust, a UK-registered grant-making foundation established in 1974 by Joseph Kasner, has long funded Zionist educational and religious initiatives. According to the Public Interest Investigations website Powerbase, records show that its donations have included projects inside settlements before, although the Susia funding appears to be particularly significant. UK Torment, meanwhile, is less a traditional charity and more of a financial conduit for settlement support. Investigative journalist Ben White exposed UK Torment all the way back in 2015 as a facilitator for UK-based donors seeking to channel tax-efficient money to Israeli projects, including those in the occupied territories. Its founder, Johnny Klein, is a former Israeli army veteran, an ex-spokesperson for the West Bank settlement of Ariel, and a former member of Israel's pro-settlement Jewish Home Party. UK Torment has openly stated that it does not discriminate between donations going to Israel proper and those in the occupied territories, effectively making itself a clearinghouse for pro-settlement finance. The scale of the funding also raises broader questions. If two charities can send £5.7 million to one institution, one school, as it appears to have done here, how much more UK money is being channeled to settlements annually? Campaigners estimate that tens of millions may be reaching settlement-linked projects via similar UK-registered bodies, including JNF UK, which has faced repeated allegations of supporting settlement activity through environmental projects. The B'nai Akiva Yeshiva case may simply be the tip of a much larger iceberg, therefore. The legal status of Israel's settlements is unequivocal. Article 49.6 of the Fourth Geneva Convention states that the occupying power shall not deport or transfer parts of its own civilian occupation into the territory it occupies. Yet, of course, they've been doing it for decades, haven't they? The International Court of Justice reaffirmed this in its 2004 advisory opinion on Israel's separation barrier, concluding that settlements violate international law. UN Security Council Resolution 2334, which was passed in December of 2016 with UK support, went further, declaring that settlements have no legal validity and calling on states to distinguish in their relevant dealings between Israel and the territories occupied since 1967. Well, it would be useful if the UK put its money where its mouth is then, wouldn't it? Britain's obligations are very clear, therefore. It must not legitimise, recognise or assist settlement activity, yet allowing UK charities to fund schools and infrastructure in Susia is a direct breach of those obligations. Worse still, by granting gift aid tax relief, the UK government is effectively rewarding settlement activity. For every pound donated through KCT or UK Tormit, British taxpayers refund 25 pence to the charity, meaning the Treasury is indirectly subsidising this occupation. This is more than a legal problem, it's a moral disgrace. Baroness Saida Varsi has condemned the situation as appalling, noting that UK taxpayers should not be forced to bankroll illegal settlements and destroy Palestinian lives. Labour's Andy MacDonald has demanded legislation to remove charitable status from any organisation funding settlement activity, arguing that Britain's current stance is a betrayal of its own foreign policy and of international law. And he's absolutely right in that. The legal contradiction is also a potential liability. Human rights lawyers argue that failing to act could open the UK government to judicial review for breaching its international commitments. If Canadian lawyers could push the CRA to act, British courts may eventually be forced to address whether the UK's charity system is enabling breaches of international humanitarian law. The Charity Commission insists that its hands are tied by domestic law, though. Under the Charities Act of 2011, it argues it can only regulate whether an organisation's stated purposes, education, religion, poverty relief, are charitable under UK definitions. Unless a charity is funding terrorism, fraud or other criminal activity, the Commission claims it cannot intervene, regardless of international law implications. This defence does not withstand scrutiny, though. The Commission is legally required to maintain public trust and confidence in the charity sector as well. Allowing British taxpayers to unknowingly subsidise illegal settlements fundamentally undermines public confidence and risks reputational damage to the entire sector. The Commission has invoked this argument aggressively in other contexts, particularly when targeting Muslim charities. Interpal, for example, was placed under repeated investigations and restrictions despite no proven links to terrorism. Human Appeal faced years of scrutiny based on unsubstantiated allegations. So the double standard is glaring. Pro-settlement charities face no such intrusive oversight, despite openly funding infrastructure that violates international law. The Commission's willingness to stretch its powers against Muslim organisations, but to plead legal helplessness when dealing with pro-Israel charities, suggests that its caution is politically selective, and also in this context, flagrantly racist as well, surely. The Commission also has discretion it chooses not to exercise. It could impose stricter due diligence requirements on charities operating in conflict zones, or it could test the boundaries of its authority through court challenges. Instead, it has referred the issue to the Attorney General, which strikes me as an attempt to delay and deflect its responsibilities. The question of whether the Charity Commission is simply weak or politically compromised is central to understanding this scandal as well. Under William Shawcross's tenure as chair, which was between 2012 and 2018, the Commission developed a reputation for ideological bias. Shawcross, a well-known supporter of Israel, was accused by civil society groups of disproportionately targeting Muslim charities while ignoring pro-Israel organisations. His tenure cemented an institutional culture of risk aversion where pro-Israel causes were concerned. This culture persists under Orlando Fraser, the current chair. Fraser has shown no appetite for confronting politically sensitive cases, preferring instead to seek government advice before acting. His caution mirrors the wider political environment. The Charity Commission is answerable to ministers in a government heavily influenced by Labour Friends of Israel and, under the Tories before them, Conservative Friends of Israel. Keir Starmer's Labour government, desperate to now bury the anti-Semitism scam after it successfully did in Jeremy Corbyn and with all of his Israel lobby backers, has aligned himself closely with LFI and adopted an unquestioning pro-Israel stance. It's frankly the only political pledge he's ever really kept. But then he is also a self-declared Zionist without qualification. Confronting charities funding settlements risks political backlash and donor anger, something neither major party appears willing to risk. More important to them, evidently, than international law is. The Commission, in this context, is not acting independently, but is being shaped by the same political pressures. And while there's no evidence of direct Israeli government control where it comes to the Charity Commission itself, we do know how heavily organisations can be lobbied. But the regulatory inaction is also a product of political capture by the government of the day and the government that came before them. The Commission is not simply weak, therefore, it is operating in a system where challenging pro-Israel interests is politically toxic for them. Canada's decision to revoke the JNF's charitable status exposes the UK's position as completely untenable, though. The Canada Revenue Agency concluded that funding illegal settlements violated the principle that charities must operate for a public benefit consistent with Canadian and international law. The legal reasoning is almost identical to the UK's charitable framework, which also requires charities to act in a way that uphold public trust. Canada faced significant lobbying pressures too, yet it still chose to act. The UK, which shares similar international obligations and domestic legal standards, continues to insist that its hands are tied. The difference is political will, not legal possibility at the end of the day, then. Britain's refusal to follow Canada's example isolates it amongst the Western allies. The EU has long prohibited public funding for settlement activities, and Canada's move places further pressure on the UK to align with international standards. The UK's failure to act is now, especially in light of the expose of these two charities, a national embarrassment. Behind these financial scandals, there are real human consequences. The expansion of the B'nai Akiva yeshiva in Susia is not just an educational development. It contributes to the permanent displacement of Palestinians. Human rights organisations have documented how settlement growth in the South Hebron Hills region has led to increased demolitions of Palestinian homes, land confiscation, and restricted access to water and grazing land. Every new dormitory built for yeshiva students means another Palestinian family pushed closer to displacement. By allowing its charities to fund this expansion, Britain is complicit in this dispossession. It is more than just a question of legality, therefore, it's a moral indictment then. Ending this complicity requires legislative reform and political courage. There's very little of that about in Starmer's government, isn't there? The UK should amend the Charities Act 2011 to explicitly prohibit charitable funding for illegal settlements and should remove gift aid eligibility for any donations linked to such activities. The Charity Commission must be empowered to consider international humanitarian law when assessing whether a charity's operations are genuinely for public benefit. Strict due diligence and public reporting requirements should be imposed on all charities operating in conflict zones, and knowingly funding settlement infrastructure should be treated as a criminal offence. These reforms are neither radical nor unprecedented. It's just common sense, isn't it? They simply bring Britain in line with Canada and the EU and its own apparently stated foreign policy. The UK Charity Commission's defence that it is bound by law is a convenient fiction. Its selective enforcement of charity law, its political caution, and its failure to act even when public trust is at stake reveals an institution that is not merely weak but complicit. Britain's refusal to legislate, despite Canada's clear precedent, further exposes it as politically captured by pro-Israel interests. Until Britain confronts this reality, every pound funneled through these charities will remain a symbol of British hypocrisy, a nation that condemns settlements with words while financing them with deeds. For more on what Canada has actually done, which the UK could easily replicate, check out this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't done so already, so as to ensure you don't miss out on all new daily content, as well as spreading the word and helping to support the channel at the same time, which is very much appreciated, holding power to account for ordinary or working class people, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.